Hi, and welcome back to Reverse Shot. This is the show where we take a look at the failures and successes of the press. Today, we're taking a look at one issue. How do you deal with a tyrant? Well, according to J.D. Vance, our vice president, who showed up in Munich, Germany to speak to our allies, our staunchest allies, you got to learn to live and let live. Yes, in a speech where he eviscerated our staunchest allies, he questioned their democracy and said, look, you may disagree or agree with us, but we will defend to death your right to say whatever it is. Take a listen.
And just as the Biden administration seemed desperate to silence people for speaking their minds, so the Trump administration will do precisely the opposite, and I hope that we can work together on that. In Washington, there is a new sheriff in town, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we may disagree with your views, but we will fight to defend your right to offer it in the public square, agree or disagree.
Meanwhile, back at the White House, Donald Trump praised his vice president for his efforts, while at the same time showing his hypocrisy at nearly the same time that Vance was on stage in Germany. He has banned the Associated Press from being a part of the presidential pool. Why? Because the Associated Press has decided that it is still going to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico. That really angers Donald Trump. Not only does he disagree with Associated Press, but by God, he's not going to put up with it. Take a look at this statement. That's right. It's a presidential decree, and you'd better follow it. Meanwhile, Ted Boutros, who defended both me and Jim Acosta in our fights against the Donald Trump first administration when he tried to pull our press passes, has come out and said the AP has a great grounds for suing Donald Trump, and that it has compromised the First Amendment, and that there is no reason for this decision. Take a look at his statement. Meanwhile, there's only been one exchange between reporters and the administration about this issue. During the fourth presidential press briefing by the presidential PEP secretary, Caitlin Collins from CNN asked this very pointed question. Here is the exchange between Collins and the PEP secretary.
And final thing for you, which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the Geographical Identification Name Server. And Apple has recognized that. Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America. And it's very important to this administration that we get that right.
Okay, a few points. First of all, the rest of the world hasn't recognized the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. And the AP has offices all over the world, and they set the standards. So they're wise to wait until there's been a law passed or other countries recognize it. Also, Trump does not get to decree or dictate the facts. Now, if this doesn't stop, pretty soon he's going to ban everyone from the press pool except his fans. And we've seen enough of those in the press briefings. A lot of times just thanking Trump for being a great president while failing to ask good questions. Also, it isn't a privilege to cover the president. It's our job, sanctioned by the First Amendment. It is a privilege for Donald Trump to be in the Oval Office by the grace of 77 million voters, and he's still an employee. He's not the king. He's not a dictator. He doesn't get to decide what the facts are. The only thing the PEP secretary got right is that it is a privilege for her to be in the White House. Finally, there was no follow-up from the press after Collins asked this very important question. None. The press briefing went on for another 20 minutes, and no one even touched this issue. But like I said, there were plenty of people who congratulated Donald Trump on being a great guy. Some say we should boycott the briefings with the president and his PEP secretary, and some say we should just not cover the president. No. I was told that many times during the first Trump administration. Let me tell you where that leads. You boycott and we walk out. He fills a room with a lot of his sycophants who will again congratulate him on being a great president and won't ask any questions. Also, if we don't cover him, well, there are plenty of reporters who will. We're not going to cooperate in this. Your best goal is to don't let him fill the void with sycophants. Now, apparently the WHCA, that's the White House Correspondents Association, has sent a letter to its organizations asking all these organizations and companies to stand up for the Associated Press. That's not going to cut it either. That's just going to give Donald Trump a blacklist of companies that he can retaliate against. No, that's not the answer. The answer is the proximate man, the people in the pool and in the White House who have direct access to the President of the United States. Let me put this as bluntly as I can, especially to my colleagues in the press. If you want to cover Donald Trump, then you have to be the immovable object. You have to stand fast and ask him questions. You have to refuse to move, refuse to bend, refuse to break, and ask him the tough questions. That's your job. Push back against his verbal defecation. It doesn't matter what he or other reporters or your mother thinks about you. Your job is to ask questions of the President of the United States. Speak truth to power. You must put that ahead of your own job. You must put it ahead of your career. Your public is waiting. You're the public's representative. You're not at the White House to be popular. You're not there to make friends. If you need a friend, get a dog. Yes, I know. It was, who said that? Yeah, a president, Truman. Do your job. Be ready to go to jail. Be ready to lose access. Otherwise, you're part of the problem, and right now we need solutions. Donald Trump is sticking his index finger, middle finger, and ring finger up to the world, and he's saying, read between the lines. Donald, let me return the favor. This is Reverse Shot. We'll see you next time.